But first up, let's catch up with Miranda Devine, who's been covering all things America for the Daily Telegraph and the New York Post. Thanks for joining us again, Miranda. You've written about Donald Trump's speech on Independence Day. What an amazing backdrop when you're talking about history and how we remember it and monuments. To go to Mount Rushmore and make the speech he did might be a turning point for Donald Trump in trying to turn things around a bit, because he's been on the back foot for weeks now.
Look, yes, it was such a good speech, brilliant speech, probably his equal to his Warsaw speech back in 2017 as the best of his presidential career, written, of course, by Stephen Miller, his well-known speechwriter. And it was brilliant. It was exactly what was needed, what the doctor ordered for a pretty dispirited America at the moment, standing up for the values, the founding fathers, for all the things that have made America great. He talked about American greatness and about the founding fathers' doctrine, which is that all men are created equal. Very important in a time of racial division. And he also called out the bad guys. He didn't pussyfoot around. He talked about far-left radicals who want to, tear down statues and destroy history and indoctrinate children. He didn't pull any punches. And I think certainly for people who are sort of thinking that no one in America is standing up for law and order and that the president's been silent, this was red meat to the masses.
Yeah, as you say, he sort of talked up this long-held theme of American exceptionalism and tying it back to history, but also that contemporary problem of slapping down those who want to destroy the history now and tear down their monuments and disparage their own country. Let's just have a look at a little bit about what Donald Trump had to say.
Our nation is witnessing a merciless campaign to wipe out our history, defame our heroes, erase our values, and indoctrinate our children. Angry mobs are trying to tear down statues of our founders, deface our most sacred memorials, and unleash a wave of violent crime in our cities.
Yeah, strong stuff there from Donald Trump, Miranda. Now, despite television screens and media coverage in the US and around the world for the last month dominated by the agitators, if you like, the protesters, the rioters, surely what Donald Trump had to say would have got a head nod from the mainstream, from the great majority of most quiet Americans.
Exactly, the quiet Americans, just as in in Australia's election where Scott Morrison talked about the quiet Australians. It's the same phenomenon in America. And you see it actually, I wrote about a group of Catholics in St. Louis, Missouri, who have gathered around a statue of their St. Louis. And they are protecting it, saying the rosary, saying prayers. They're unarmed, they're unaggressive, and they've been beaten with sticks and spat at and abused in the most horrendous ways. And yet night after night, they continue to come back, pray the rosary in bigger and bigger numbers. And that's starting to happen. Those rosary groups protecting statues are starting to happen all over America. I think Americans have realised that they have to look after themselves, and they're standing up and they're looking for leadership. And really it's been sorely missing, certainly in those Democrat-run cities that have allowed law and order to just fall apart. You saw in Seattle, for instance, that autonomous zone where 2 young black men have been shot dead. You're seeing in every city. I mean, Chicago has had terrible black-on-black gun crime, and that's spiked even worse. Since June 20, I saw a statistic the other day, I think 100 people under the age of 18, children, have been killed. In New York, just in the last weekend, there have been 45 homicides in every single borough of New York. There is just a sense that this anti-police, Black Lives Matter attack on law and order is now bouncing back on the people who can least afford it. I mean, it's not rich people who can afford their own security guards who are hurt. It's those people living in housing commission apartments in the Bronx, where there's gang warfare is rife, who are dying. You know, young kids, black kids being killed. I know someone who works at NYCHA, which is what they call the New York City Housing Authority, the big apartment blocks in the Bronx. And he's telling me, he goes in there as a worker, he tells me that, you know, those candlelit shrines in corridors of those buildings to young black kids are popping up with sickening regularity. And
yeah, we've got to have accountability for police, of course, when they do the wrong thing or they're bad police, but you undermine the authority and the respect for the thin blue line, people are going to pay a horrible consequence. Thanks so much for that, Miranda. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Great to talk to you.